All right, first question. Mr. Fong, where were you born and raised?
I was born in Canton, China, on November 23rd, 1928. And I was raised up in a little town called Widener, Arkansas, Widener, Widener, Arkansas. Yeah.
Can you tell Impact International a little bit about your educational background?
Yes, when I came to the United States at 5 years old in 1934, with my mother, my father was running a grocery store in the little town, and so at 7 years old I started first grade at Widener, and then the school closed down when I finished second grade. The third grade went to another little town about 6 miles from there called Madison. And so I finished my elementary school years there, and then went to Far City High School, junior high and high school, Far City, Forrest, two R's. And after I graduated, I wasn't planning to go to college. In fact, I was kind of like because I was raised in Arkansas, and they were racist there. They would call me Ching Chong Chinaman and all that business. And I used to fight all the time. That's how I got started in the martial arts. Eventually. But at that time, there was no martial arts, as far as kung fu and karate and all that. My father used to tell me about these kung fu masters putting their fingers through boards and bricks and all that stuff.
Right.
And so I used to say to him, I said, that's bullshit. I was a cocky little guy,
Yeah.
And so he said, well, you'll see. He said, your uncle, you know how small he is, but, he learned Kung Fu, and that's how he handled himself in Chicago when he was running his restaurant. People come in to eat and wouldn't pay. He'd just go after them,
Okay.
So that was in my mind since I was growing up.
Yeah.
But I never really conceived that, you can break bricks and boards and all that stuff. And he used to tell me about these Buddhist monks coming to the village and they beg, and people tease them and they didn't know any better, and then they jump out from where they are and just beat the hell out of them.
Wow.
So he said, but all the monks did was they trained, they meditate, but they didn't work. They had the people in the village fed them. They go from village to village. And so he told me all these stories.
Okay.
And then so what happened is, so when I go to school, kids, the first day I went to school when I was 7 years old, they were calling me Ching Chong Chinaman, singing a song with it, So I just smiled. I didn't know what was going on. And I said, well, I'm getting a lot of attention here.
Yeah. So
when I went home, my father said, well, how do you like school? I said, well, it's okay. Everybody, likes me. They all singing songs to me. And they said, what do you think? I said, he called me Ching Chong Chinaman. And so he said, hey, they don't like you. They tease you.
Yeah.
They're making fun of it. I said, really? And so when I went back next day, we were in recess and playing a game of softball or something. And the guy called me Ching Chong Chinaman. And bam, I popped him right in the face. And so I got in trouble with my teacher. It turned out my teacher was one of my family's best friends. We talked about. In fact, I mentioned that to her when we got married. I invited her to. She's 70-something years old.
Yeah.
So I asked her. I said, Miss Carey, you remember that time that I punched that kid and then you turned me over and tried to spank me, and at the time you were about 25 years old. You had a tight sweater on, and I just looked at me. I remember, how well she was built. I was 7 years old.
So you had a good memory.
Yeah, I had a good memory.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's how I got started, and then so as I progressed in my education, constantly people teased me. So back in the early 40s, a Montgomery Ward catalog came to the house, and I saw this whole section of books in the Montgomery Ward catalog. There was one book called Jiu-Jitsu by Zoju Mishima and Welch, something like that. I ordered that book. I lost a copy, but I found one in an old bookstore about a year ago, and then I picked it up and I got it.
Okay.
It was written back in the 30s.
Wow, so
I
real
looked at that,
rarity.
yeah. And then the book on how to box by Barney Ross, and I still have it.
Wow.
In fact, I still have that book at home, and I bought that in 1942. So I learned how to box reading that book. I used to hang up stuff. And so I graduated from Varsity High School, and what I'm doing here is laying foundation, that I had no intention of going to college. And so I got in trouble, beating people up, and they beat me up, and finally I got kicked out of school. And finally, after about 6 weeks, my father said, "You guys are in trouble, I'm going to bail you out." So a neighbor of my father, who was also racist, but he wasn't racist to us, he was racist to blacks, in the town. And so he said, "Well, okay," he said, "it's not fair, Chief," he called my father Chief, he said, "to let this kid run around here and not get an education, so I'm going to go up to the principal and talk to him and get him back in school." So I told him, he said, "No," he said, "Boy," he said, "if I get you back in school, you won't get in trouble no more." I said, "No, not if they don't quit calling me Chinaman, change on Chinaman." I said, "If they don't say that, I'm okay. But if they say that, I don't care what they said, I'm going to kick butt." And so he went and talked to the principal, and they let me back in. And so everything's okay. I get an occasional fight here and there. Somebody always, making fun of my race, my heritage. And so anyway, when I was in the about 16 and a half, 17 years old, I got sick. And I had a high fever, and it was just lingered on for a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. It seemed like forever. And my father didn't believe in going to doctors. He doctored me with Chinese herbs. And then my mother would always feed me castor oil. That was her answer to every meal. Castor oil. And then
something that
feed you out, And then after that, then she would feed you Chinese porridge, they call it joke. J-O-O-K. And it's made out of rice, and it's real thin. So they feed you that and get you back in shape. And so I got scared, so but in the meantime, I was going to church every week, too. See, I didn't go to church because I was religious. I went to church to get out of working in a grocery store. Because my parents were very strict about me running around. You go to school, you come back here. So that's why I go wild when I go to school. So I come back and work in the store, so the only time they let me off when I'm not in school is go to church on Sunday. So I used to steal cigarettes out of the store, go to church, and crawl under the church. A buddy of mine would sit there and smoke while we could hear the preacher preaching.
So you were officially at church.
So I was getting religion by osmosis. And so what happened was, so I said, well, they pray, and the preacher said, if you pray, God will give you your wish. So I said, I pray. So that's one time I didn't work. I said, well, I was so sick. I told my mom I just can't. I'm sick. I said, I got a headache. I got my fever. My head is hot. So she said, okay, you don't need to work. Because Saturday night, see, we live right in the middle of cotton country. And then the whole everybody in the cotton fields come out on Saturday nights. And so they hang around town and nothing to do. There's a tavern down the street. They play this loud music. Then they come to the store and they keep back and forth buying drinks and cookies and just this junk food, And they just socialize in there, and it's just a whole, just body to body. I mean, amazing how many people packed in the store. And so all my sister, my brother, everybody had to work to make sure to keep an eye on everybody so they don't steal. So I didn't have to work. So they worked till about 2 in the morning, and then they closed up. And so I remember I was laying there about 9 o'clock. I was hot as I could be. And I said, oh, Lord, I said, if you can make me well again, don't let me die. I will be anything you want me to be. I'll be a minister. I'll be anything. And, about 11:30, 12 o'clock, I fell asleep. And then when I woke up, the bed sheet was wet as could be. I broke out into a sweat. Fever.
Fever sweat.
I felt so good. And I had a thing hanging up in the room, a pillowcase stuffed full of old clothes while I was punching. And then I had a chinning bar up there. I got up and I felt good, and I punched that bag, and I jumped on the chin bar and did some chin-ups. And so my mother was coming in the kitchen to fix up food to eat after they closed. And said, what's going on? And I said, Mom, I feel good. I said, I'm well now. And so I didn't tell her about the religious thing.
Yeah.
So I went to the preacher
Yeah.
the next day and said to him that I wanted to be a minister. I said, how do I become a minister? He said, well, he was shocked at first, and then he said, well, you have to go meet with the district committee. They give you a preacher's license, local preacher's license. Then you got to go to 4 years of college, 3 years of seminary.
Right.
I said, well, I said, my grades are bad. I don't take anything but shop and all those courses that don't prepare you for college.
Right.
And so he said, well, don't worry about it. He said, we'll talk to the district superintendent. And the district superintendent was a cool guy. He was chewing tobacco and stuff like that. And he kind of liked me. He said, well, he said, okay, son, I see what we can do. I'm on the Board of Regents. I'll get you in.
Okay.
And so so he went and talked to the Board of Regents and got me into college. And so to college I went, and the thing is, my father wasn't very wealthy because he wasn't doing too well in the grocery store.
Okay.
They got me scholarships and stuff,
Okay.
And the first semester, I actually flunked out. They gave me a pink slip, so I said, oh boy, I said, I can't, can't face life, if I get flunked out. So I went over and talked to the Scholastic Committee.
Yeah.
And I said to these old guys, I said, look, I said, I am not used to studying. I'm not stupid. Okay. It's just that I just fool around when I was brought up in my environment. All I did was fight for myself,
right.
defending myself.
Right.
And so the guy said, well, I'll tell you what, we'll give you one more chance. If you can make a C+ average next semester, we'll let you stay, and we want you to take one course. We want you to take this Psychology 102, which has to do with teaching you how to study.
Okay.
And so I took that, and I took 3 phys ed courses, and because I was good at that.
Okay.
And then I knew the coach. He liked me too. And by the time I got through out that semester, I had a B- average because I made A's in those phys ed courses. and I made
what you did best, made up.
Made a couple of D pluses and a C. So I went to Hendrix, a place called Hendrix College, Hendrix.
Okay.
College in Conway, Arkansas. So I graduated with a Bachelor's of Arts degree in phys ed and a minor in religion.
Right.
And then I went to Southern Methodist University for my seminary work. So I got a master's in divinity, theology there. And so when I got through with the school in Dallas, Texas, I thought I was going to go back to Arkansas to serve the church. But because then I realized about racism in the church.
Right.
So they told me, well, in the Methodist church, they accept you in, or they ordained you, which they did me. They got to guarantee you a job. So they said, well, we can't find a church for you here. I said, why? I said, I was raised here.
Yeah.
And I don't talk Chinese. He said, well, we don't have any Chinese churches here. I said, hey, that's stupid.
Yeah.
So they really run around, the bishop and his cabinet run around trying to find me a place to go. And at first they were going to send me up in Montana to this Indian mission. And I said, well, I'll go anywhere. I don't care.
Yeah.
So I ended up in Sacramento. They found a church near Sacramento in 1954.
Okay.
So I called a Greyhound bus, came out here, and that's how I got into California.